games before.
Do I even need to say anything else? You ever have one of those games that you play and have a ton of fun with, but somehow you still feel empty? Like, you know it's good, even great, but it's just not doing it for you? Well, ladies, that's exactly how I feel about Wuchang Fallen Feathers, the newest Chinese Souls-like, joining a market that may or may not be getting saturated. May make a video on that next. But I'm going to be 100% brutally honest with you. I think this is just another Souls-like. There's really no other way I can describe it. And that's disappointing because on its own, it is, dare I say, a great game. I actually really like it. And if you're someone who doesn't play a lot of Souls-likes, this may hit harder than I get when I see those jiggle. Oh god, I'm sorry. But this is me we're talking about. The guy who has reviewed every modern From Software game and many other Souls-likes, especially since 2023. And while, yes, this game does have some great bosses and is genuinely smooth and fun to play, there is nothing about it that feels unique. It does have new things I haven't seen, but as Kendrick Lamar says,
it's not enough.
And I was waiting for it throughout my playthrough. I was like, when am I going to start feeling like I'm playing something new? I mean, no disrespect to the work that developer Leenzee did here in what looks like their first big game, but when you're putting out a game in this genre, you gotta do a little more to distinguish yourself here. It feels like they had the right idea, but at the same time, it feels like they just wanted to cash in on the Souls popularity without doing any of the extra work, and that kind of pains me because I wouldn't classify this as anything like Ubisoft. But understand when I say you have played Wuchang Fallen Feathers before. But what am I talking about? Well, how does this game feel so generic? And what is there to say about what's on offer here? Well, let's go before she looks at you again. Oh shit! So strap in, boys and girls, and let's get down to business. So Wuchang Fallen Feathers takes place during the collapse of the Ming Dynasty in medieval China. You are the pirate Bai Wuchang, and you are infected with a disease known as the feathering, which to any normal person corrupts their minds and makes them go insane. But you are different because, well, you're the main character. So now you need to stop the spread of the feathering while also looking for your long-lost sister. Or trying to resurrect her. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. But all of that is irrelevant right now because the most important thing for any Souls-like is, of course, how it plays. And like I said, it does feel good. There's primarily an emphasis on dodging, although there are skills that allow you to parry, and the movement here does feel smooth. Attacks feel impactful, even though hitboxes can be a little wonky sometimes. Oh, get the f*** out of here with that. But if there's one thing from a gameplay standpoint I genuinely think is great about Wuchang, it's how it blends both melee and magic into your playstyle. You have melee weapons as your primary form of attack, but you also have magic as a side option. It's not like you have a magic build that you have to actually invest in and can't use melee. You're basically going to be using both in tandem. Now you still need to upgrade your magic stat for damage, obviously, but spells are presented like almost your second weapon instead of its own class. And the game gives you a shit ton of spells, especially after bosses. Your reward will often be some kind of badass spell, and each requiring a certain amount of your ability points, or as it's called in this game, Skyborn Might. You can build up Skyborn Might by doing things like perfect dodging, and as you progress and unlock new skills, you can gain Skyborn Might on a certain hit of a combo string. Gaining Skyborn Might will allow you to use different spells, your weapon ability, and your special skill, or your discipline. Bullying Kick My Beloved, but this is combined with another system in Wuchang, that being madness. Since you are infected with the feathering, you eventually turn into a sexy demon girl with glowing red eyes that I'm definitely not entranced by. Every time you die, rest at a shrine, or kill a human enemy, you gain madness. Human enemies being an enemy that doesn't get Thanos snapped when you kill them and actually says something. Which personally I think that's bullshit because I'm getting attacked most of the time. That's self-defense, son. There's nothing demonic about that. What are we doing here? Once you get to 90% madness or above, you start being able to deal more damage, but also take more damage, gain more souls, and lose more souls when you kill enemies. So basically, the scale gets wider for both. Oh, and you know that spot where you just died?
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
And there's some skills you can unlock later that start taking effect at 50% madness, but 90% is generally when you start seeing the bulk of the madness effects. Now, on paper, all this stuff seems interesting, and you might even be saying, wow, that's pretty compelling.
Were it so easy,
but in execution, it doesn't really feel different at all. You've played games where you build up the essence to use abilities and skills, and madness, while interesting, doesn't really make the game feel anything life-changing except a few invisible stat sliders. The more I played the game, the more I felt like it was just another one of the same Souls-like action games that I've played 100 times already, which is not bad. I'm not looking for anything revolutionary here, but I was just looking for a little bit of like an identity, and it doesn't feel like it has one. So if the only thing that makes your game stand out from a gameplay standpoint is that a demon spawns at your death point if you die too many times, I'm sorry, but that's not enough. But you know what? There is something that feels different, and that is the progression system. And I think it's dumb. Now, the way this works is the way you level up is not through souls, or in this game, red mercury. No, instead, you exchange the red mercury for skill points to then spend on skills. I'm sorry, this is stupid. There's no reason for this other than we want to be different. This ain't Genshin Impact. We're not exchanging primo gems here. And then you get to the skill tree itself. Most of the nodes here are just basic stat increases with a discipline or a passive skill in the middle, and also weapon level, and also healing level.
What?
Again, we want to be different. We're not doing this because we think it's better. I don't know, maybe I'm just a stickler, but when you're putting healing charges and weapon level in your skill tree, when that's normally their own separate thing because it shouldn't be associated with the skill tree, then you're left with stat increases, which would normally be taken care of by the basic level up system in traditional Souls games that we all know, and then you realize there's not a lot of substance to this skill tree. It's mostly just bloat. Again, maybe it's just me, but I don't think this progression system is particularly good. I think it's unnecessary. But okay, that's the gameplay, so what do I have to say about the level design? Well, that's where we start having problems. So for those of you who have followed me for a while, as an Asian setting Souls-like, what do you think my main problem is with the world? Yep, it looks exactly like every other one.
This looks strangely familiar.
It's because we've been here before.
I thought maybe after Black Myth Wukong that games like this can have cool, unique looking worlds, but nope, we still got some work to do. There was one area that I thought looked unique, and that was Mount Shenwu, because it's literally a mystical forest, really beautiful to look at. I can't help it. Shiny, shiny, activates my neurons, but other than that, every other area feels like either something that I have seen a bunch of times before, or it's just uninteresting to look at. It really does feel generic for most of the time you're playing. Temples in a forest, a snowy mountaintop with an enemy camp, the obligatory cave with weird shit in it because I think the cave itself helps with frame rate. Don't quote me on that, but it got much higher once I made it here. And the stuff that could be cool has this washed out gray look to it that just puts you to sleep in what should otherwise be a badass set piece. When you hear something awesome like Doom Willow Beach, you don't expect to just be staring at rocks the entire time, with the occasional decaying tree. It looks terrible. Although, it does have the greatest mimic of all time.
Actually, I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
I guess Snowfall Palace is cool. Might be because I haven't seen much Chinese architecture in video games, so it comes off better, but I guess I could add that to Mount Shenwu. Even the final area, which I won't spoil, on paper should be a cool looking concept, but just comes off so drab and dull. I mean, at least there's no burning village, so that's something. I don't know if I should count this because it's one building. I legitimately don't know what a widespread solution to this is. All I could do is point to Fountainhead Palace and be like, look at that. That's the most gorgeous area in any game in Asia I've ever seen. Black Myth Wukong's last 4 areas took simple settings and did something cool with them. This stuff can be done. You just need to brighten your color palette and get more creative. You know what? I think I just had an epiphany. Hold on real quick. As I'm speaking right now, I think I found the reason why none of these Asian settings work for me and why it feels like all these games look the same. Hear me out for a second. A while back, I had a community post where I said exactly this, and one of the responses was, well, how do you feel about games set in Western environments? And I thought about it like, how am I going on my 20th castle in a Souls game, but still feeling like I'm seeing something new? Well, I finally have my answer. If we're taking Western to mean medieval knights and all that, then the reason why this always works is that you essentially are taking the Western-inspired aspects like knights, swords, shining armor, and you're using that as the general groundwork for your fantasy world, not exactly the setting. which allows your creators to just go crazy for everything else. Your locations can be different. Your castles can have different aesthetics. The skyboxes can be any color you want. You want a giant hand in the distance? Go right ahead. Literally anything you want to put in your fantasy world, you can, but you're still using the groundwork of European-inspired architecture. In Asian setting Souls-likes, the problem per se lies in the name, Asian setting. Every game is set in Asia, in this case, China and Japan. So you literally are looking at the same world. And the world is not just Asia, but historical Asia, like during different real-life dynasties. So not only do you have the same location to work with, but you're also limited in what you can do because you can't change history that much. Like, because of this limitation, you can't get anything like the lands between because that would make no sense whatsoever in that context. What, did Nobunaga cut down the Erd Tree or something? I know what you're saying. Well, you could take some liberties in how the areas look. We're not doing an identical one-to-one copy here. Surely you could put weird-looking stuff in the middle of that historical Asia, and that worked for Neo back in 2017 because that was the first real Souls-like set in Asia, specifically Japan. And yeah, Demon King revealed goes hard. But since then, nobody has really been able to expand on that, like come up with those crazy ideas, because we have to stick as close to historical Asia as we can without making it look completely unrecognizable. So the most we could do is have weird crystals and vines sprout from the ground and have a ridiculous looking end level, because by that time in the game, you have the freedom to go nuts because you fulfilled the historical requirements of the world up to that point. So for the majority of the game, that leaves you looking at historical Asia. And you know what that has a lot of? Forests. Small temples in those forests. The notorious burning village because everything's made of wood, and that happened a lot back then. If we took the same design process used for Asian countries and applied it to historical medieval Europe, most of the levels would just be wide open fields and farmlands, because if KCD2 didn't tell you anything, that's how it was back then. That's boring, which is why we go for what we go for. But ZD, who says you can't go nuts even with these supposed limitations? Who cares if the land of China has giant monsters in the distance or an aurora borealis above its cities? Who says we can't have ridiculous looking Asian inspired settings? I agree, but nobody has done that yet, and whether it's a cultural thing or not, I don't know. Whether it has to take place in some dynasty, I really couldn't say, but all I know is that I no longer get impressed when I'm looking at Asia for the 70th f***ing time. Thanks for listening to my long-ass TED Talk, as I was saying. However, when it comes to layout, this starts pulling its weight. I do have to say, where Wuchang fails to impress in the aesthetics department, it makes up for with the general layout of the areas. Everything is interconnected, and it's done so well that you could legit compare this to a From Software game. That's how fine-tuned and meticulous the level design is. You could tell a lot of work went into making this world from a layout standpoint. Like, the amount of forks in the road is unreal, and you could really lose yourself going off the beaten path. You can end up opening a door and find that it leads to an area where you were already in with a closer shrine than the one you were exploring. I have to give the game the credit that it deserves. This is expertly done. And then you realize it's for nothing. I love the fact that Wuchang's level design is this fleshed out. My problem is that exploration for the most part doesn't feel rewarding. The items you get off the beaten path, in my opinion, are not worth the extra 5 minutes I spent trying to navigate it. There are useful drops to find, it's not completely worthless, like new spells or some upgrade materials. Probably the best fork in the road in the game is Snowfall Palace, because it has this extra treasure room that you could go to where you could find a bunch of cool items, and also this cool new sword that has like a little fan that you use. Even as I say this to you, you might be like, oh, spells, upgrade materials? That sounds great, ZD. Why are you bitching? Trust me, if I was satisfied with the rewards, I would tell you. It doesn't take a lot to impress me in this regard. You get those, but not a lot of it. By God, the weapon upgrade process is like the stingiest I've ever seen. You know that sword I got from Snowfall Palace? I tried upgrading one-handed swords alongside long swords, but throughout my entire playthrough, I only found enough upgrade materials for my main weapon to go fully, and that's me going through mostly every fork in the road that I saw. I mean, how far do I have to look to find enough materials to get my second weapon past level 3? In every other Souls-like, you find a pretty large amount of upgrade materials just exploring naturally so you have enough for 2 weapons. But goddamn, in Wuchang, it seems like vendors are the only place to make headway if you want to even think about experimenting. How about you put more feathers in the world so it doesn't feel like I have to open a mine in real life to excavate this shit? But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of cool weapons to find. I mean, this was my inventory by the end of the game. And that's me playing naturally and, like I said, exploring a lot of the map. But the only time I was satisfied was in Snowfall Palace. That was when I was like, okay, I'm glad I went through this place. I'm glad I took that fork in the road. Everything else felt like I was legitimately wasting my time. And I can't believe I'm saying this about a world that is this interconnected and well thought out. When you have a world like this, and by the end of the game, I'm groaning every time I see a fork in the road, that's how you know something is wrong. And if they just put better loot on the map, this would be one of the best design layouts I've ever seen in a Souls-like. But you want to get even more complicated? Well, we gotta talk about the real reason why we came here. It's time for the one, the only, the boss, baby. Like I said, even though I think Wuchang is a generic Souls-like, I'm going to give it credit where it absolutely deserves it. The boss lineup in this game is one of the best I've ever seen. Dude, I don't know what it is with me and my Souls luck recently, but Wuchang is yet another that I have played in succession, where the bosses for the most part are great. I don't know what's in the water right now, but I keep being impressed with the polish, the design, the movesets, like from the first Berserker, Liza P. Overture, the Lords of the Fallen 2.0, and now Wuchang. It's like, it just doesn't stop. There is not one boss that I fought that I looked at and thought was bad. I may have thought one wasn't as impressive as the others, but there's no real bad or bullshit boss, at least that I fought, that I can think of off the top of my head. You know how hard that is to do? It's not at the level of Kazan in my opinion, but this boss lineup we got here is one of the most consistent lineups in any Souls-like I've ever played. It actually started to get to a point where I was fighting bosses and I was like, oh look, another great one, alright, on to the next. And I stopped myself and I was like, wait a minute, that's not something to gloss over. As a whole, they're a little more on the easier side, although there's some that may or may not give you problems. But that does not take away from the quality that we have here. As the game is centered around speed and dodging, the majority of the bosses are centered around, you guessed it, keeping pace with you and moving with you. Which is why you've heard people talk about how the bosses and, you know, actually some enemies in general are in constant motion and are always doing something, so it makes it hard to get hits in. And while I agree with that statement that the bosses are in constant motion, it's nothing like Elden Beast where you're running after them. Once they stop, you could get shots in, but they're not going to make it easy for you. But if you're someone like me, well, you heard me say it's on the easier side. But specifically, the human bosses give you enough time to charge a heavy attack to stagger them, so you can perform that oh so sweet fatal attack, which, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but the goddamn sound effects in this game, just listen to this fatal blow. Sounds like something straight out of Mortal Kombat or something. There's, I believe, 24 bosses in the game. 10 of them are main bosses, and I won't go over all of them, but I definitely have a lot I want to talk about. Trust me on that. I'm not going to go too deep into the game, but just in case, here's a timestamp if you don't want to be spoiled on the bosses. Take a look, take a gander, fall in love with it because you're not getting any action yourselves, and let's roll. The first boss I want to talk about is actually the hardest one I've faced. Yeah, we're coming out swinging. Say hello to Honglan. Lady, what did I ever do to you? Are you jealous of my rack? I don't know what I did to piss Honglan off, but what I do know is that this lady can absolutely take care of herself. The absolute hardest fight in the game up to this point, and the first boss where I genuinely had to take a good part of my day to figure out. This woman chains attacks together constantly, giving you almost no room for error. If you don't figure out which attacks are in which combo string, and you're not going for those devious backshots, you ain't leaving this place alive. Between her ground stomps, awkward sword combos with martial arts in the middle, coupled with a second phase that I don't know how I survived, but I did, and you have a boss that is a genuine skill check from most players, and I love it, even though she doesn't love me. It's a fight that's all about speed, and if you could beat Honglan, you could beat anything in Wuchang. But after that, we have a woman that I tried to impress upstairs, but apparently failed to do so. The Madam Huang Yan, the ruler of Snowfall Palace, who is looking for a bride for her son, and thinks that I am a good fit after the last one didn't work out so well. She is an incredibly easy fight, but by God, is it awesome. In between avoiding her frost and corruption magic, she will dash towards you with kicks. Yeah, those legs aren't just for show, they deal the blow. Can I do blow off your ass, please? Then you throw in that now her fox scarf that she wears turns into a real magic fox and starts throwing himself at you. Not gonna lie, I got serious Phase 2 Mesmer vibes from this part. There's a lot of action packed into this fight, but my God, I did not see this coming. You know what else I didn't see coming? The fact that our next boss is the bride that Huang Yan tried to groom for her son. And I think I see why that didn't work out. Fang Ling. I don't know what to call you, but all I know is this fight feels just right. Dual-wield sword strikes in the beginning with blood lasers coming from her monster mouth. Dude, this design is something else. But the first phase is basic, albeit still cool. And then phase 2 hits. I never thought I would love an electric guitar riff in a medieval China Souls-like, but goddamn does that hit! The Chimera version of Fang Ling is, as Scarlet Witch says, pure. Dude, this makes Tancred look like a middle school nerd. I don't think I need to say anything else. This fight is unreal. But continuing our female-focused boss highlights, you ever wish you could fight female Big Bird? Well, here's Bo Sorcerer. Kind of an underwhelming name. If there's any boss that feels like a dance, it's Bo Sorcerer. Like, probably the most fluid fight in the game. Every sword combo from her just feels so graceful, even when she's throwing out exploding needles. Oh, and she also does the Palpatine jump. You get through phase 1 until phase 2, she starts airbending and launching energy projectiles that can apparently go through the tree. Besides the fact that the Palpatine jump makes you have to run at her sometimes, I cannot find a legitimate complaint for Bo Sorcerer. I don't know where to rank these women in terms of who I think is better, but I do know that even though the girls have been running the house so far, Daddy's home.
The Ming Dynasty has woefully fallen. But while an empire can perish, you can never erase its honor!
The last boss I want to highlight might be my favorite, and that is the Dragon Emperor Zhu Yuzhan, who was a real-life emperor, so historical age is kinda slapping right now. Phase 1, The Reborn, is literally a more buff moon presence. I mean, look at this thing, it's uncanny. Very simple first phase, full of a lot of pound, swipe, beat your chest, I'm a gorilla boy. But phase 2 is where the magic happens. Unlike your bed. It starts with a giant fireball being launched at you, followed by him teleporting, doling out Moog's blood flame attack that I don't think is ever supposed to hit you, and a bunch of sword slashes followed up by him changing tactics and launching ice rocks at you. All the while he's recounting how he was betrayed as the emperor and how his dynasty fell. Although some lines I will say sound a little goofy,
Excruciating pain!
which just makes me think of this.
Excruciating pain!
He's also got this giant healing AoE that I think you're supposed to hit him out of, but I was too much of a sissy to try. And also the run I beat him on, he didn't do this once, so RNG for the win. This fight is the spectacle that you need and the spectacle you deserve. And even though there's fights after this, it's hard to top the Dragon Emperor. So there you go. Those are the best bosses in Wuchang, and honestly, I could talk a lot more, but let's be honest, nobody wants that, including me. But for a game that is as generic as this, you could see where all the thought and grand ideas went. That's for damn sure. So at least for that, thank you, Wuchang. It's the reason why we came here, and on that, you understood the assignment. So despite us ending on a high note, I ultimately think Wuchang Fallen Feathers is just another one. I don't think it has a unique enough identity to have any real staying power. But at the same time, I can't sit here with a straight face and say that it's a bad game. Matter of fact, objectively, it's a great game. But every Souls-like has something that they bring to the table that makes them stand out. Lies of P has their mix and match weapon system. Lords of the Fallen has the Umbral Realm. Kazan's combat absolutely fucks. Neo's combat system feels great. Even Inotria, which I don't think is one of the best, has their loadout system. Wuchang has a demon spawn in where you die, if you do it enough. We can't lean on a great boss lineup because that's not really original, other games have that too. And the easy use of spells isn't enough either. So in the end, despite the things it does well, to all who are curious, my statement remains the same. You have played Wuchang Fallen Feathers before. It's unfortunate because at another time this would be much higher, but Wuchang Fallen Feathers, as of this moment, is a 7 out of 10.